our meeting to order, and we'll start just by acknowledging that we are on the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, Mi'kma'ki. We have an agenda in front of us. No changes or additions as of yet, so I do anything else to change or add.
To accept the agenda.
Consensus for the agenda. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded. Right, have an agenda. We do have a delegation this evening. Nancy Robinson. Come right up, Nancy. Let's talk about the Digby Area Housing Coalition.
And we have Harold Alexander,
Oh, yes.
board member.
I'm the quiet
Ones you have to watch out for.
So Deputy Mayor and councillors, we're very pleased that to have this opportunity. You know us well, I think, because you passed the development permit for the Siesta Motel property, the Montague project. And tomorrow is the last day of the appeal period, so I think we're through. So I think I sent in a letter, so I believe did you get the letter that I sent in? Okay. Just a brief history for those who perhaps don't know it. We started in July of 2021. I think Paul was there. And we actually were registered with joint stocks in October of that year. And we had the chance of buying the Siesta Motel property in July of 2022. And that was a big hurdle, and we had a down payment from Sister Bonnie and her group. Otherwise, we never could have bought it. And then we begged and pleaded with the CBDC to give us a mortgage, and we were paying about 8% on that mortgage for 3 years. So this is kind of terrible. Anyway, we have New Commons Development has come to our rescue. They're a nonprofit consulting company, and they have helped us through this process, and they don't get paid until we get the money. So we're in the last stages of getting the money from we've got the province on board, and the last stages of getting the final funding from the CMHC. And that final project, Class B cost assessment, which is like, I don't know, Harold, 80% or 90% of the cost is fixed cost will have been established. That's what they have to see before they will give us a letter of intent. As soon as we have the letter of intent, we'll be able to start demolishing and rebuilding, hopefully in the spring, hopefully. So you all know the plans, and I have a brochure here in case anyone would like one later. So we're here because we have great plans for Digby, and I think we've gained a lot of expertise, and we'd like to be a partner, basically, in housing, because we need a lot more than 34 units. I think they'll be filled up, almost immediately, and they're stereos and one bedrooms. And because there was a lot of need, our first applications back when we thought we'd be opening in about a year, by retrofitting the motel instead of having to rebuild, we thought we would have, we got applications, about 40% were single, seniors, people disabled, and that's why we have we planned it the way we did. But we know there are a lot of families who are hurting, and we have some alarming statistics. Recently, I think I've put some of them in there, like Digby had the child poverty rate is like 36%. So Digby has the worst, and and we have the core housing need. I put in my letter that it was 14%, but that's for owners. The core housing need in the town is 29%, which means that people are living either paying so much rent that they can't eat, or they're living in substandard housing with mold or not enough rooms for the number of people in their family. So even though that survey, which is kind of crazy, the Western Regional report here, it shows that Digby doesn't need any houses, but the municipality needs 400 or something. anyway, I consider that Conway and Digby are kind of one entity. That housing in Conway will help Digby and vice versa. So that's how we see it. And so the ask was that we have a working group. We had a working group with the municipality for about a year, and it's kind of without the town involved. I think it's not, it doesn't make much sense without having a councillor and the CAO of both working together to look at future developments. And that's what without bragging, I'm just saying we've got the experience, we've got the contacts, we belong to the Nova Scotia Nonprofit Housing Association. We have, we've just gained so much experience that we'd like to partner to get some more housing done. So that was basically our ask, having a working group and then to look at an executive director position, because a group of volunteers cannot do all of it. So I'll pass it to Harold so he gets a word in edgewise.
Yeah, just to follow up on that point, like we're big, like this, the Siesta project is probably going to be between $8 and $10 million. And it's a huge, big undertaking for a group of volunteers. I mean, Nancy, hats off to her. She's been the driving force behind this forever. She pretty much works full time on this. But, it's what we're trying to do is more than just build one building. What we'd like this to be is a strategy for developing all, really attacking the housing problems in Digby on our own. Like some of the comments I had from councillors early on was that housing is not our responsibility. But for a long time, I've thought that we as communities have to accept responsibility for solving our own problems. And I think we can do it better than anybody else. I mean, if you guys think about healthcare and education, and where a lot of times the power for the things that happen are from outside, are people who live outside of our community. So, so what we're, like Nancy says, we're asking for some involvement from the town municipality. We're asking for some money to hire an executive director that can do some of the things that we're doing as volunteers right now, but also to do other things. So in our case, like we have 2 emergency shelters at St. Patrick's, and I've come to learn that, I was one of the people driving to have them. The diocese paid for them, and I realize now they're not a place for someone to live. They're a warm place for someone who's in an emergency. But the 2 clients we have in there right now, there's no place else for them to go. They don't have, it's basically a place to sleep. They can't even warm a meal in there, so that's the bottom level of service that we need to provide. And then if you look around and see all the communities in the province who are building these little units that actually have a shower in them, some people call them pallet homes. And then there's beyond that affordable housing, which is what we're trying to do. And then, hopefully the private sector will develop enough regular apartment living. We're hearing rumors about some good projects in the town. And so anyway, we need help. We've just thrown out a budget there that, Jeff Sunderland kind of helped us establish before he left town. And but we're open to suggestions about what this working group should look like, some kind of an executive would look like going forward. And I may have mentioned before, if you look at the Digby Area Recreation Commission as sort of a template for, I'm not saying exactly that we should look like that, but, a town and municipality are both involved. You have a staff that's funded, and I'm sure in what we're trying to do is there's going to be a pretty good payback on this. If you think about the taxes that these properties will generate over time, you'll have to put some money up front if you really want it to be successful. But anyway, like I say, we're trying to find our way. We don't have all the answers, and we just want to partner with you guys to take this forward. And just to add a little more detail to what Nancy said about our project, it's probably gonna be $8 to $10 million. But what I understand is about 95% of the money will come from the province and the federal government. So like, for us, as a community, if we can, for that kind of money, 5% of the cost of a project, that's all we gotta come up with. And we're not gonna ask you guys for that money. You might be able to help us out, we don't know, but once we finally get the document that says the funding is approved and you can start construction and the expectation of new commons development, the national not-for-profit that are helping to develop this project, maybe by May the 15th, we'll start smashing down what's left of the old motel and start construction, and with people being able to move into these brand new apartments probably in the fall of 26. So about a year and a half out. It might get done sooner than that, but they'd rather be conservative. So anyway, it's an amazing project for the town. It's going to be a beautiful thing, and we just want to work with you guys to do more good things.
I'll be quiet after saying this. It says for every $1 million spent on affordable housing, approximately $2.9 million is generated within local economies. So I hope that turns true. Benefiting construction, retail, and service sectors. There we go. Okay, we're open for questions, I guess, or comments.
Certainly won't get any argument from me about the need for housing. I guess just a few. Well, thank you. I have a few questions just to start with. So, what do you sort of want from the town? Are you looking at the DARC model, where there's a representative from the town and a representative from the county on a board that's registered either in the town or the county? Is that what the model you're looking at?
That could be.
This is not what we asked, but we did ask that at the very beginning when we started in July in 2021, and we were told there was a conflict of interest. So we've been looking at how that work out, and we would welcome that definitely. So yes, a councillor from each council on our board, and maybe would be a non-voting position, however we set it up. But I think that would be essential. Yes.
I know it's a difficulty for the town in our relationship with the county because the proportion are so different for both groups that we would not want to get into another 50% funding situation because it's not fair,
Okay,
frankly, to the town. So that's another concern we would have as a town. Does anyone have any other questions?
I guess with regards to the conflict of interest is we approved the development agreement, so I don't know what would happen if the board decides we're going to put up another building or something or more shelters, and we approve the development agreement. So that's where I see a conflict. But true or not, I don't know. We'd have to check into that.
Yeah.
Right? But it would be probably a conflict if our PAC does it and we approve it, and we're all on PAC. So.
I mean, the high-level idea is whether the municipalities, including the town of Digby, want to take on some responsibility for housing for the people who can't do it for themselves. And I think as far as the conflict of interest goes, there's usually a way around things, like usually you can find a way to make it work.
And that would be the working group. Perhaps it would be temporary, something for 6 months or something, so that we hash these things out. I know Amherst, Antigonish, the Antigonish Affordable Housing Society, they have a councillor on their board. And I called him up, and I didn't ask at that point whether his position was voting or non-voting. But in any case, you can always absent yourself.
Yes.
So, yeah, right.
And the municipality, would we be working on that units in their municipality as well?
It's our thought that the affordable, Digby and area affordable housing would be for the people in the town and municipality.
Yeah.
And it would be our hope that both units would, and in my case, I'll openly say I hope they're one unit at some point, and it'll be a lot easier for us, right? Yeah. But going back to the conflict, Mike, I wonder you know, in some cases, you guys have you ask for volunteers for different boards, you know, so you might, if somebody was really interested in working on this project with us, they could come as a representative of the town, and they could, you know, keep you guys informed, and then it would probably get rid of the conflict, you know, but, so, anyway.
Any other meeting space in that building for a concept, or no? Just for you as a board?
We have meeting room there, yes. In the new building? Oh, yes, definitely. There's a community room. And we have our office there, so we'll have space to meet, yes, definitely.
Have you built a list already of people who are looking for a place to live? And
Well, we did at the beginning. We immediately had about 40 people call us and 30 applicants. We still have their forms. But we're waiting till we're sure, you know, before we start that process. But we will have, we've called it a community navigator, but it's more like a tenant engagement person that we plan to hire, and we're looking for that money for ourselves. The executive director position we're looking for to share the cost with the town and municipality, at least for the first year, would oversee that, but be starting to develop other things, oversee the shelter project, our Conway development that we have already kind of visualized, at least it's at the vision stage. And we have satellites, Bear River, there's a satellite group for Co-op Housing for us. There is a entity, the church there wants to donate some land for us. So we're, you know, the Neck and Islands and Weymouth are still, you know, there kind of in the wings that we could help. We're not going to do all that, but we will have we will be able to help them, you know, advise them, that kind of thing. So the executive director would be kind of an well, you know what an executive director is.
Working on all the issues,
Yes, yeah.
all the housing issues.
In other words, doing what we're doing, but, you know, executing what the board wants to do, yeah.
So if your project's $10 million and your funding is 95%, where do you see the other 5% coming from?
We're gonna start a fundraising campaign
Fundraising.
as soon as we.
Yeah.
I just felt that it wasn't, you know, to go and ask for money before we're sure it's, you know, I keep asking these developers, you know, but, you know, I can't believe that this project wouldn't go now. You know, we're just waiting apparently for CMHC to make the final commitment. And, you know, the province has been on board for quite a while.
Yes.
So would the $10 million be in the form of a mortgage, or?
They're gonna pay for the project, you know, and.
Yeah, about 500,000 would be a loan. We're not exactly sure of the loan because they just CMHC changed some of their criteria. And it looked like when we started, we'd have a mortgage of 500,000. That's what it looked like.
And we mortgage 500,000 and 5%, 500,000 potentially.
Yes, and right now our price tag is, the way it's looking, $234,000 a unit is actually more like $8 million, but our people said, you know, with everything happening, who knows?
So
10 million was mentioned at one of the meetings.
So this national not-for-profit New Commons development, they've done a lot of all the paperwork. You know, all we got to do is say we're offering them guidance from the community level. You know what are the architect, engineers, developer people that's responsible for our project lives in Vancouver, and you know she keeps calling Digby a city, and I reminded her Digby's a very tiny, poor place, you know, like.
She's new that she just came on, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, she's learning pretty quick. So to me, it's amazing that, you know, this not-for-profit group is helping organizations like us. It's a miracle, really. They fell out of the sky, and they've made this project possible for us. You know, and so.
Just the work you've seen, you've seen.
Yeah, we just, you know, they gave us the money to do the architect stuff and the engineering stuff, and so every 2 weeks Nancy and I meet with the technical group, you know, like engineers, the architect is the one who runs the bi-weekly meetings. You know, they got a list of all the things we need to do. So the project's totally organized. We're gonna be sort of on the outside looking in, you know. Well, these guys are, New Commons are gonna hire, you know, so they've hired Gary in construction. And, because there wasn't any contractors locally who wanted to take on a project of this size. And the expectation is that Garion is gonna sub out a lot of the work from around the community, so, but,
So is it fair to say at this stage you are shovel ready, you just need to check?
yeah, so one of the issues we're looking at now is, you know, some of us had hoped some of the buildings on the site would be able to be moved and repurposed, you know, but, we'll see if there's any interest in that. We don't want to pay anybody anything to move it, but if they want to move some parts of it, you know, at their own expense, then, so we're gonna, as soon as we get that letter of intent that we're ready to go, we're gonna advertise a little bit, and get people to sign waivers for liability reasons, that if you wanna come and take some of the doors, or you want some of the windows or whatever, I mean, we're all into recycling. We are, you know, that's the way we think. So then, whatever's left over when it comes time for construction, it'll be smashed down and dragged away. But you know, it's a perfect location, you know, on the bus route, next to the hospital and shopping and downtown. You know, like, I know some people thought Nancy was crazy when she pushed to buy this place, and she thought it was going to be able to be fixed up, you know, at a reasonable price and all that, but that's not the way. So now we have this unbelievable project, you know, 34 units will make a difference, right? So,
I
anyway.
thought Tim Horton was crazy too.
What?
I thought Tim Horton was crazy too, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm old enough to remember that. But you know, I'll give you another example about communities doing their own thing. If you look at Norway, for example, every other country on the planet has hired the big oil companies to develop their oil resources, including Canada and especially Alberta. And you know, the money that comes back to the province or the nations is little tiny bits. But Norway, when they found out they had oil, on access to a lot of their own oil, they said, let's form our own oil company. And that's what they did. And now Norway is the second richest per capita country on the planet, mostly because of oil revenues. So they, you know, they're the company. So I think I always use that as a, you know, why we should, as a community, get involved in housing. And I think it'll happen a lot quicker. It'll be better managed. It'll be more appropriate. You know, so all those things.
Everything's always better when you have a vested interest.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Okay,
You guys don't have to be quiet. You know.
We do have plans that are like community development. This is not, the tenant thing will be a community. We're working hard on that. It's not just housing people. So community development, a social enterprise, we're looking at to help support it. You know, transportation will be very important. getting people up the hill. We're a hub for your new active transportation plan. We made sure, and we're a hub, so that people can, you know, if they've been getting up if you have a child or you're disabled, getting up to Sobeys even is a trek. So we're hoping to have a community car, something creative, shuttles, whatever. So we want to work on many other things as well. So we hope that to have this working group, and maybe at the council you'll have a decision. I don't know. But somehow we'll discuss these particular aspects. Tom will lead us through that. Okay.
Anyway, thanks a lot.
Thank you for your time. Yeah.
Will request, do we have a motion to send it to council?
I'll make that motion to send. I'll second that as well.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, motion's carried. Okay, moving on to minutes of the previous meeting. Been in your package. chance to review them. Are there any errors or omissions?
I'll move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you very much, Councillor McCormick. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Weir. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Now, we'll move on to reports. The CAO report. I think Leslie is going to step in for Tom.
I made a couple notes. The appeal period for the development agreement for the Housing Coalition is ending tomorrow, February 19th. And the rezoning approval application is into the URA and that ends on February 20th. So those are a couple of important dates I just want to highlight there. As you can see, we put a big description on the NSUARB planning appeal for the Thomas Road. We did receive an email today, I think they distributed to you folks earlier, just on an amendment they're looking for. The NSUARB's fire inspection appeal is coming up on March 25th to 27th in Halifax, and Tom will be attending along with the fire inspector for the municipality. And I guess those were a couple of highlights I just wanted to point out from his report.
Thank you, Leslie. I want to backtrack for a minute. There were no business arising from the minutes. Did anyone have anything that they wanted to add to business arising? No, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the Director of Public Works.
All right, so the month of January, we're very busy. We've been working on the annual reports for the Nova Scotia Environment for the water and wastewater. The CMP for the federal wastewater reporting has been updated with a one-year extension for that approval. The wastewater report is due February 15th, which was turned in last week. And the Digby Water Commission annual report is due March 31st. The information from these reports is gathered from January 1st to December 31st each year. And the annual report for the CMP is due in April, and this is gathered from April 1st to March 31st each year. Okay, so let's go on to wastewater. We had a combination air vacuum relief valve that was leaking on Airman's Walk. The parts had to be ordered to make the necessary repairs, and the parts have arrived and repairs have been completed. The Muffin Monster had to have a Lovejoy coupling, and the locking pin replaced. Stop your laughing over there. Because it sheared off. The Muffin Monster was out of commission for a month, and once the repairs were completed, the motor kept heating up, causing it to overload, and that has now been sent away to be rebuilt. So streets, during the month of January, Public Works employees plowed, salted, and cleaned up snow around the town for a total of 28 days. The current employee shifts are working to keep the overtime hours to a minimum, but the labor budget for the snow removal and the salt budget will most likely be above budget this year if the winter continues on the current trend. Under equipment, we had to have the brakes replaced on the F-250, and this account will be above the budget amount. The budget amount. So, one thing to highlight is the transmission of the backhoe, the older backhoe, has been repaired, and it was an extensive repair. They had to drop the transmission, and if I remember correctly, it was around $26,000 to have the repair completed. So I suspect, I haven't talked to Matthew, but I think we're getting very close to that budget amount too for repair and maintenance for our equipment. And those are the highlighted things. So actually, under safety, I had in here that our fall arrest and confined space course will expire this year. So I've already booked for everybody in Public Works to take it, and we'll be taking it April 15th and 16th right here at our compound. So, and I think that's everything.
Any questions for the Director of Public Works?
I got one. The fall arrest course, is that just for the town, or is that open to other people too?
So actually, I have opened it to the municipality of Digby and Claire. I contacted them to see if they want to send any employees to it. But we normally, last time Claire hosted it, so this time we're going to host it. So we kind of opened up to our partners within.
Okay, it's not open to private businesses.
We normally wouldn't do that, but I wouldn't say no, because we have to have a minimum of 12 people. Of course, I think we have to pay a minimum of $1,400 and change, so which equals that to 12 people. So that's why I'm trying to gain the extra people so that we're not just paying, instead of us paying $112.50, we're gonna end up paying $140 a person, right? So I'm trying to save us a little bit of money on that end, so if nobody bites, I probably would ask to see if there's anybody that wants to take it, yes. Just to try to cost share a little bit.
If we could find, because now it's been for a while, a prerequisite of being in the theater, to have a fall arrest. I wonder if we could find someone somewhere maybe that might be able to take it.
Would you like someone to contact you if they are interested?
Sure. Right now, only one person they're just taking the fall arrest at the municipality. I haven't heard back from Claire yet, so, but I suspect I will because they're all new employees down there, so.
I just have a question about our salt and sand and where we are in our reserves.
Do you know, Matt, have we reached there yet?
Yeah, we basically, at the end of January, our wages were fully used up. So it looks like we could be, if February continues like this, we could be $30,000 over budget on the wages alone. The salt doesn't really affect anything. It's looking like we're going to be about $15,000 over on salt, but keep in mind we've got a reserve. We just transfer in to the operating budget, to the operating results, whatever loss. So if we have a $15,000 loss, we transfer in $15,000, no effect on the bottom line. That's why our reserve, some years we're putting money in, some years like this we're taking money out. But yeah, overall that's the biggest single number that I've got in the variances is the winter wages if this keeps up.
So to add to that, I was able to buy one truckload of salt from Dexter's last week. It was 30 ton. We have another truckload coming on Thursday, which is another 30 ton. Now it was around 56 plus tax, 5,600 plus tax for that 30 ton. And I was able to find a truckload of traction sand, which is coming from Halifax too. That was 1,700 plus tax delivered to the shop. So that's a 30 ton load too. So we do have some, we don't have a huge stockpile, but if our normal winter trend slows down like it does hitting March, we should be okay. So it is definitely, it came out to about $180 a ton, which is about $15 a ton that we're currently paying. So it's not like we're being damaged. Sure, we're not. It's more than fair. So because they buy it and truck it no different than we do, right? So. Any other questions?
Kind of want to say.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I was just waiting for the seal.
Oh.
I want to know what that was all about.
So there was a baby seal down the Rackerbury, and instead of the guys taking the backhoe or the tractor and the shovel and putting it in the bucket, one of them decided to pick it up, and I don't think he realized that seals are very slippy and they can move very quickly, and he grabbed him right there, just like that. It was lucky he had leather gloves on when he grabbed him, where that would have burst her. It'd been bad, I'm sure. So don't worry, we've had a chat about wildlife now with all the guys. So
Tetanus shots are up to date.
yes.
All right, we'll move on to the director of finance report.
Okay, so there's two reports there. One is basically items that have gone on that other than the financial reports, and the second one is the financial reports. So the first one, tax sale, as you know, coming up by tender March 4th, 2 properties. We don't have any tenders in yet that I know of, but we know some people have asked for the forms. The capital budget, so we've begun work on that, just very basics. And Director of Public Works and I will go over that again tomorrow. We'll start getting a bit more put down on paper to try to get a draft together. The Mount Street upgrade, so it's good news or bad news, whichever way you want to read it. When we looked at the original numbers to get the grant before COVID, we got $2.4 million. Then as numbers started flowing in, we thought it would be 4.06 million, and that's how we budgeted accordingly. And it looks like now we're pretty well done, and we're going to come in about 3.7 million. So less than what we've budgeted in our capital budget this year. That's the entire amount of Mount Street. That cost is shared between the town, the water commission, and also a portion of the sewer is paid for by the municipality based on an agreement, because their sewer flows through our sewer. So they're going to pay 35% of that upgrade of the sewer. So the WCB webinar, duty to cooperate, this is quite new for Nova Scotia, and it could potentially affect us. So it's a duty to cooperate. In the past, there's always been a duty to accommodate, don't confuse it with that, workers and help them get through things if problems arise. But now this is focused more on the worker, that the worker now must cooperate in working with the employer, with the WCB workers and the medical practitioners. And that's the long and short of it. It could result in some interesting scenarios. And that puts us more in line with other provinces. And it came about because Nova Scotia has in Canada, it has the worst return to work times. So people are, when they go off work, they stay off work the longest of anywhere in Canada. The low income property tax rebate, every year we offer that, and by policy it's updated by the change in the consumer price index. And the change in the average consumer price index calendar year over calendar year was 2.5%. So now the amount people will get is that much higher, $372. And that's if they have a household income now $27,580 or lower. So the rental units, you can see there what's been paid, not much to report. And in the other items, I guess one item to note is our backup generators. Noticed in the grant agreement that we actually needed a project manager unless we get written permission not to have one, and was able to contact them, get the written permission, so we don't need to spend that money. So that's a good thing. It's a fairly straightforward project to put the generators in. So moving on to the next report. So this is the operating and capital budgets. It's the written part of it, and then the operating results to date, and then the capital results to date. So on the first page, the most important news is we were looking at probably a small surplus before, and I think if you remember in my last report I said, what happens with the weather, and look what happened with the weather. So now we're basically going to end on budget, which means we could be, up to a $20,000 to $50,000 deficit or $20,000 to $50,000 surplus. And I try to just highlight, rather than giving you the 21-page detailed report of all of our general ledger accounts, where we're up, where we're down. These are the single largest items, and anything that's changed since last report is highlighted in green. And you can see the biggest number on there is the snow and ice removal wages. Didn't see that a little over a month ago, but boy has it hit us hard. The transfer tax, you'll also notice is in green again. It continues to surprise, so more money. We could be 75,000 over budget. So by the time you have the good and the bad, it shows a $9,600 surplus on the bottom, which basically is breaking. And the capital budget, the last sheet in that report, again, I put this in here really so that you can review, you can ask questions. I'm not going to go over it in any detail. And anything that's changed since last report, I highlight in green. And so the items of note, I guess the land and trailer purchase, a bit more cost in there, but as I understand, it is sold. And of course, Mount Street, which I've already gone over with you. So unless there's any questions there, I won't go into any detail with that. And that's it.
So with the suspension of the lease in the Old Tourist Bureau, I guess, is the water shut off? Light turned off?
Yep, everything shut off, yeah. Basically, we were gonna have to heat it underneath the building like we did in the past when we rented it there once before, or turn the water off. And when I talked to Dada, she just said, turn the water off, and then I'll talk to Tom about it, and I said, perfect. So, because otherwise, we were gonna make less money than we were actually bringing in. Right, it's gonna cost a fortune to heat everything. So, this is all electric heat under the building, it's just tarped in, it's not insulated or anything, so. Kind of a fire hazard too. Think about it, but.
Is there any other questions for the Director of Finance? No, all right. Thank you very much. Moving on to the Special Constable.
Just kind of cover a couple highlight points here on the Dangerous on Site League. 122 Queen Street, the abandoned vehicle is now finally removed from the property. 10 Carlton Street on February the 6th, the property owner was sent a notice of bylaw violation by registered mail. Owner is given 14 days to resolve all known deficiencies in the notice. Failure to comply by February the 27th or resolve the issuance of an order remedy by March 3rd. They'll have 30 days to complete all repairs. 53 Racket Road received a copy of a demolition permit for the site, so they are still intending to demolish. Word is that it's now moved until the end of March due to unforeseen issues with the contractor. 56 Water Street on December 10th, I received an email from the property manager informing me they would speak with the building inspector to gain clarity how to resolve the current complaint. Currently, there has been no response from the property manager at this time regarding the building inspection or advice or direction. 128 Water Street, since my initial inspection, the building department has performed a fire inspection on the site. Several repairs have been completed. To my knowledge, no inspection to verify the structural integrity has been completed at this time. While off due to illness, a tenant reached out to thank me for the work that's been done thus far on the apartment. I'm very pleased with what's happened so far. Since this report was completed, I've been in to inspect the property, and there's been many reservations from new cupboards to flooring, electrical repaired, smoke detectors, a variety of things have been done to improve the apartment and the health and well-being of those on site. Just a quick overview of the report. Any questions?
So I guess we're gonna set a meeting for the bylaw.
It's that.
That's it.
Yeah.
Any questions on that? Okay. Protective services.
The CCTV report, code for the security system upgrade to provide the ability to restart the system remotely in the event of a system failure. Cost for the upgrade is $646.26 for an option to restore the system off-site. You can also have it monitored for the yearly fee of $150 per year. That way it's monitored offline by a third-party monitoring system, so that way if something goes down, notification can be sent to myself or somebody here, and they will just restart it remotely. On December 18th, or on December 17th, the system went down for Friday, 17, 15, and didn't come back on until December 18th when I was on site at 8 o'clock to bring it back online. So it's off for approximately 15 hours. So when the system does go down, it does present a blind spot downtown. I also received an RCMP request for footage covering a break-in on Water Street. Parking control, there was a complaint of a car left snow covered encroaching on town land. Contacted the property manager, had them move the car. Civic address required verification, no other concerns or issues to report. Also posted a notice of tax sale on a vacant lot, Public Works assisted. Taxi license, received a complaint against a taxi overcharging customers. Called owner to issue a verbal warning since no proof of accusation could be received an additional in-office complaint surrounding a cab driver being charged with assault using a motor vehicle. Under current bylaw, they are not obligated to inform bylaw that they've been charged only upon conviction. Civil matter between cab companies continues and appears to be escalating. Our CMP has been requested to aid in resolving dispute and monitor drivers' behavior. 14 Birch Street, notice was mailed to the property owner on December 11th, informing when their waste bin had not been repaired. On December 18th, they contacted me and verified the task has been complete. The 45 Monaco Road complaint has been resolved. Vandalism, received a call from the community garden free pantry where they've recently been vandalized. They're looking for some potential suggestions on how to resolve that. I'm not sure what to recommend. They had inquired about potentially video surveillance or motion lights. Again, at this time, I'm not sure what I can recommend. I just merely said I could bring it to concerned council. Open fires, received an in-office complaint concerning an open fire at 208 King Street. Residents took a copy of the bylaw with the diagram, properly constructed fire pit to the residents to speak with someone on site. However, at the time of visit, no one was there, and I mailed a notice to the property owner to make sure that the property owner is aware of the violation and the rules surrounding open fires in the town of Digby. Again, it's a quick overview of the report.
Thank you, Officer Runnan. Is there any questions on that report? Comments?
I think we should take the system upgrade discussion to council and consider looking at that, because in this case, the bylaw officer was back in and able to get the system back up the next morning, but that happened on a Friday night and you're not in until Monday, and we're not aware of it. That could be, that could be significant, especially if our CMP or someone else, is requesting footage, and it is good to have that. So seems like it would be a little bit of a cost for the one time and then $150 ongoing like every year. I'd say it's worth that, in my opinion, worth that, having the discussion at the very least. So if it's okay, I'd like to move that we take that discussion about the potential upgrade to the system to council.
Seconded. All those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. I'll take that to council. Okay, anything else from that report? No? Okay. Move on to the grant coordinator.
All right, you can see in front of you, I did submit the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund application. That was the federal grant. Once I submitted it once, they turned around and sent me a notice 2 weeks later that I had another 14 pages to do, so I did part 2 as well, because heaven forbid, you should have everything together all at once. The end application is 68 pages. If anybody wants to fall asleep and read it, I have a copy. Not sure if everybody knows, but in regards to grants, when you apply for a grant and you receive a grant, in most instances you also have to do updates, or progress reports, as well as final reports on grants. So you can see there was a number of progress reports done on grants that we received last year. Beautification, PCAP, and 2 community work. So I wrote those as well, and I was able to submit a final report for our African Heritage Month event that we had. Helped out downstairs with some front desk support for absences and made sure that the tax sales were posted. Also helped the executive assistant. We had a really well attended African Heritage Month proclamation and poster ceremony. I believe my count at one point was 82 people. Apparently that's one of the more well attended events. And I would like to put out to the ether that that is a direct cause for letting, I don't know if anybody knows Carmelita Johnson. Once I let her know, it's like gangbusters and everybody shows up, so she's a great help. I know that I've talked to my CAO as well as to the mayor, and we are going to be looking at, if we are going to continue to put these events on, that we are going to put some committees together. I'm not sure if you all know, but the Emancipation Day and the Heritage Month are put together by the executive assistant and myself, and it's too much work for 2 people to do, especially when you've got 40 to 50 invites you have to send out to dignitaries and such. So if, as I said, if we're going to continue with it, although
We're hoping with the Jackpot organization opening their building, I think this summer, is what I've heard. We're hoping that those events could maybe take on a different form, where we would be supporting them as a society to be able to put on those events. But we'll have to see what happens with that building. So that's my report.
Are there any questions or comments on the rec coordinator's report?
I just comment, Terry, you guys did a great job. It was really, really good. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
No comments?
Yeah, it went well, and I did talk to Brenda, I followed up with Brenda. And, I guess that their place is opening like soon. So I kind of said, well, so next year that'd be a 1-year anniversary. So she's thinking of tying in the same thing. So we'll be having that event there along with their 1-year anniversary. So sounds like they're gonna move it up there anyway. So it's good.
Would more of the municipality be involved then, if it's that way?
We had talked about splitting it back and forth, so now maybe there'll be a split of the work 3 ways, yeah, possibility, absolutely. No other questions or comments? I'll look for a motion to approve all of those reports.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Finished with reports. Move on to correspondence, cost sharing paving program from municipality owned trucks and routes. Leslie, is that you?
Well, it can be a combination of things. We talked briefly about it downstairs today because I wanted to bring myself up to speed on what the letter actually meant. But I do think in this capital investment plan, as I talked to Matthew earlier today, 2025, 2026, we've committed to doing from the rail bed on Victoria Street to the Racket, and then past the Racket to the town of Doobie, they call it the town boundary, basically on Shore Road, and then back as far as the bridge. Those roads is kind of why we were waiting when we put the tender out, and we were way over budget on our tender. We agreed that we'd hold this project for a bit until see what would happen. We knew this was coming, but we didn't know how it would look or how we would be able to do it. So, do you want to take it?
So those two sections he's talking about do fit what they're asking for. They talk about trunks and routes. So the definition of a trunk, or sorry, a route would be, for example, 201 to 399. So we're talking the 303. So they both fit into that designation they're looking for. And the other one they've mentioned would be a trunk highway, which would be numbered from 1 to 99, which we actually don't have any in Digby anyway. So those two items we have in the capital budget both fit into what they're looking for. So, and I'm not going to be exact on the numbers, but it was around 200,000 for the small piece and around $500,000 for the big piece. The small piece was milled, but the big piece we're just capping it. Is how we had the estimate done. So, okay.
Sounds good. Any other questions on that? None? Okay, we'll move forward. And letter to America from DAP. We had that in your package and a chance for you to study that DAP has come up with in response to trade disputes and problems going on between our two countries. And I think we're looking for some funding. Price tag to advertise in New England newspapers.
Yeah, originally they had discussed the idea of putting it in the New York Times. I'm fairly certain after they looked at the price of that, they changed what their locations were for where they wanted to run the ad, because that would have been even more expensive than what they put in here. And I'm not certain if this is actually the most recent version of it, because the mayor had sent back a response to them, and then there was a updated number that came back for the request. Was that?
It dropped like 10 grand.
Yeah, so they have submitted to the levy to cover a portion of this cost, so the marketing levy. So that would come back to ask the town municipality if we'd cover the remaining amount beyond what they've submitted to the levy for. Do you think we can get that distributed to, was it sent to everyone on council or just to the two of us?
Just to you, so what I suggested to Data was we should do it maybe as a region. So did they contact Yarmouth to Kentville, for example, the whole region to say, welcome to Southwest Nova instead of just Digby? Like, it would make more sense to do a regional thing, because the cat comes in the other period from St. John, where a lot of people got through Sussex or St. Stephen, right? So, that was my recommendation, but, they would rather pull through themselves and do it just Digby only, so I don't know, I think Southwest Nova is a better sell to welcome everybody from the state to Southwest Nova. But that's just my opinion.
If it's okay, Mr. Chair, so the other email that they did send back, so yeah, it just went to the mayor, myself, Tom, Linda Gregory, Joan Ross, and Tyler Pulley, and they amended their request, so they submitted one to the levy, and it would leave approximately $8,500 Canadian, and they're actually proposing, Data would like to split the cost, I guess, 3 ways, making it about $2,833 Canadian that their ask would be, as opposed to the original amount, which was, well, a little bit more. It was more than that much American.
That's on top of their, I'm assuming their grants.
Yeah, they made applications for, under the grants program too.
So they also put a request into the levy, but it wasn't part of the budget this year. So they're asking for the additional amount from the levy committee, which isn't full yet, the committee's not full. So I don't know when the next meeting is going to be, so I don't know when they plan on doing it. Do you know when they plan on doing it?
No, and I know they'd rather get it out sooner than later, but they had some dates attached to, not that email. I thought there were some dates attached to their request. Hold on a second.
So right now it's at.
Yeah, the spring travel and
Yeah.
Sunday travel feature.
Yeah, that's right, it was the spring travel feature that they were looking at putting into.
I don't see an actual date.
Okay, so then we might have to go back to them and ask for what dates they're considering that for. Unless someone wants to look up the spring travel feature or the Sunday Travel Canada feature.
So I believe they're asking the levy for 50% of that, right?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so 50% of almost 12,000 US.
Mr. Chair, sorry, does it state how long this stays in there for that kind of money? Is it just one Sunday or?
One shot.
That's it, yeah.
That's it.
One Sunday?
Yeah.
Sorry, Matthew.
Just wanted to bring up again, I think I heard the town and the municipality would be each putting in the same amount.
Just the ask.
Just wanted to remind that the population is about 3.5 to 1, and a per capita contribution model would be much more appropriate and more fair to the individuals.
Do we know if the municipalities agreed to fund any of their portion or no?
And they're not, I don't think they've had a meeting yet, this is the first one.
In what she sent us, there is also a number of subscribers that's listed there, so it gives you the approximate reach. Portland Press Herald has 14,977 paid subscribers. The Maine Sunday Telegram has 24,939. Portland Press Herald e-paper has 5,302, and there's approximately 22,000 digital subscribers to those as well. So you're looking at a catchment of about 65,000 folks that this ad would likely end up in front of.
The Boston Globe's in there too, 124,000.
Okay, yeah, missed that one, but all right. There, so even
Readership of 520.
Yeah.
It's a big price tag, but it is a big reach.
Yeah. So it's something that, I mean, obviously we're not going to vote on whether or not we're going to do it at this point in time, but maybe it's best to move it over to our council meeting so we can at least have a discussion at that point, but send out a follow-up to that, just to get a little bit more information on everything for it, and get timelines for when they need to have confirmation by. marketing levy by that point in time. Because we could say, sure, we'll commit to it, but, at the end of the day, if they're not gonna have the big chunk of the marketing levy, or if that gets declined, we don't wanna be on the hook for another, $3,500 US for the app.
Just wondered, maybe Leslie, if we could just put an asterisk too in the grants to make sure that we're aware of that while we're talking about grants too. Councillor Wood.
Mr. Chair, yeah, as you know, there's many social media aspects that are free. And we should be taking advantage of those as well. As of yesterday, we planned our whole summer, so we need to kind of start this.
I'm sure that that is probably going to spread through the tourism sites and Nova Scotia tourism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They all pick up each other's posts. Yep, absolutely. Yep. Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is we want to sort of table this for a little more discussion and we get some more information. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, it's consensus with the committee then, we'll table that and see if we get some more information and talk about it again. Great. New business, H1, Draft Administration Policy 2025-03, Citizen Appointments to Committee, Commissions, and Boards. Have a review of that policy. There in front of you, there's some small changes that were made to it. It hadn't been reviewed in a while when we talked about it. Is your will is what to do with that policy. If you're satisfied with the changes, we can forward it on to town council.
Yeah, I'll make that motion forward to the town council.
Okay, a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Foot. All those in favor of that motion? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Move that ahead. H2, Draft Administration Policy 2025-04, Code of Conduct for Citizen Members appointed by Council. It's something that Tom sort of picked up on that was lacking because we didn't have any sort of a code covering those folks who were citizen appointments, so he's drafted this policy. Again, we've had a chance to read it. And what is the committee's will?
I'll move that we take that to council.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
Second.
Councillor Weir, thank you.
Just a question on the,
Yes.
on it, just where this is, I think this should be considered a new policy, is this gonna have to go to the province, prior to
I think so.
completion for it?
Yeah. Oh, it's policy.
Policy.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, okay, okay.
No question. Okay, all those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. H3, Nova Scotia Transit Research Incentive Program, NSTRIP. Can you talk about that a little bit, Councillor?
Sure. First, I'd like to apologize for that red making that so hard to read. Didn't realize that. So as you know, I'm interested in transit and trying to figure out how we could do things better. And this particular fund is normally out once a year. It's not out yet this year. And I feel that if we could be prepared to apply for it when the grant opens up, we may have a chance to get it. And the original part of this fund for the feasibility study is funded at 100% by the province. We would need our grant coordinator to be involved to, I can't read this now because I got it red, but anyway, we need our grant coordinator to be involved to steer us in the right direction for this. But I'd like to suggest we look into being prepared for when this grant comes out, hopefully within the next couple of months.
So I did some information, Councillor Foot did some research. You're correct, it's not open yet. I did talk to the person that runs this, Craig Sewell. Very good contact to have. It is planning coming out mid-March, probably mid-April. It is funded up 100%, but only up to a maximum of $15,000. Right. His average average look at at these types of grants and these kinds of reports, he sees them to be about $35,000 to $50,000. So there would be a price tag attached to having this type of study done. I did reach out to a couple of companies that do the studies. It depends on exactly what we're looking for, because this would kind of be the new model. So they were leaning more on the expensive side of a study. There is potentially federal money that I've found as well, but that is not open yet either. The email that they sent me on actually this morning was that they are expecting it to open, and there is stackability, which means you apply for both and you just stack them on top of each other. But they don't have anything online yet to say what they would fund for. So probably the safest avenue is to say, you're looking at it's going to cost something to do the feasibility study, and then if it doesn't, that's a bonus. Kind of an idea. So.
Yeah, that's great. That's what I was looking for, is to be prepared, get the information, be prepared. You're already ahead of us on that. One other thing is there a chance that if the municipality also applied for a feasibility study, they could be combined?
Something from the joint session, I think we'd have to ask.
I think if it was going to be two separate, I don't know, that's a great question.
If two separate grants, it'd have to be two separate studies, you feel?
Yeah, I do. I don't think you could put them together. But as I said, I mean, there is the potential for the federal one. But I can when I'm back from holidays, I can certainly. This gentleman was easy to get a hold of. I phoned the number and he actually picked up. It wasn't a secretary or an admin person or whatever. So that's a really good contact to have. And he was back and forth with me very quick, because I asked about stacking as well once I found the federal one. There is a federal program. Not to be crazy. There is a federal program for electric buses.
For what?
Electric buses.
Electric buses.
So there's also that. But the information I see is that that's to replace existing buses. Yeah. But I do have an email in already that says, is that specifically what this fund for, or would you consider putting some money in if we were to start off as electrical right away?
Could we, you might not have answered this question, Rob, but could we premise our accessibility study based on what is within the town's borders on a smaller scale transit system?
Yeah, so there's something called microtransit, and that's actually a feasibility study that was done in Wolfville. So there's also that option as well, because you go micro, and you talk about smaller buses, smaller capacity, but smaller up to smaller populations. I believe Wolfville, theirs is 6,700 is their population, so it's a third of the size. And I actually contacted a person that wrote that feasibility study in Wolfville, and they're going to be getting back to me about what they did, how they did it, those type of things. They're a company out of Dartmouth. So.
That's right.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I was just wondering, with what you wrote down here, Councillor, just the effects after this study, what is it exactly going to tell us, and what can we use it for afterwards to get to where we want to be?
Okay. It's a first step, the feasibility study, to find out if we can do it, if we can, how could I say it, if it's needed in the area, for one, and if it's possible to do it. And then from there are other funds available later on for business plans, pre-implementation, pilot project. And I can't see any small town taking something like this on without federal or provincial money. But if you don't have this feasibility study, it keeps you out of some of the further ones. So you can't go in and apply for the money for the business plan, which is 75% up to 15,000, if you haven't done your feasibility study. So if the feasibility study can be done at a reasonable cost, it'll leave us prepared to move ahead if something else comes up.
Questions answered? Right. I guess you're on the radar, and we've got our grant coordinator already working on it as we speak, so.
Very good.
Awesome. Okay. H4, taxi bylaw, something that's reared its ugly head more than once. It came up again in our strategic planning studies, and we talked about it at the executive level, and I think we kind of were wondering if committee of the whole would like to send the council to get out of the taxi business. That's the discussion.
So, Leslie, if I may, how do we repeal that? Is there a process?
Yeah, so it'll be very similar to the same process we use for adoption. So we'll have to give it first reading and then just a second. It'll be a first reading, then a notice of intent to repeal the bylaw, a second reading, sending a copy to the minister as we do with all bylaws for repeal, and then date of publishing for the final repeal notice.
Is there a public hearing?
No, it doesn't look like we did, not a public hearing, just a repeal of bylaw.
So should we communicate with the taxi companies?
Well, so first you've got to recommend it to council.
Yeah.
Right.
And give it first reading, and then we can probably start the process then for notice of intent to withdraw. That'd be my guess of how it would work.
So if you're looking for a motion to take the council to investigate this, I would make that one.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we have a seconder for that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councilor Cormier. All those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Contrary minded? The ayes have it, motion is carried. H5, the trade show. Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I guess that
I'm sorry.
he passed it over my way.
Oh, you were volunteer.
So, we've been calling it a trade show, but I feel it's more of a showcase where we are able to bring all the organizations that the town is involved in, whether through funding or other methods, together, and the public can come and talk to them, find out what they do, how they do it. Yeah, and it'll be a trade show or a showcase at the fire hall. We planned for 20 booths at the moment. And we have a quote in the package for drapes, which actually turned out better than expected, so I feel that's a pretty good idea. As for the list of participants, we're looking at people like fire department, waste check, building department, Digby Salvage, property valuation, town finance, town public works, Digby area rec, Port Authority, RCMP, senior safety, and Digby area tourism. There are a few others that could possibly want to be involved, such as the Food Bank, Lobster Bash, Juniper House, Health Foundation, Scallop Days, Wharf Rat Rally, Friends of Pharaohs, and the Veal Way. So as part of this, there will have to be some displays put together, probably by individual organizations, but some of them, maybe the overall ones by the town, such as this lovely one that Matt has supplied with, where does your tax dollars go? So I think at this point, the planning's in process, and if everybody is agreed, we'll carry on.
Digby Housing Coalition probably.
Yep, that's another one on the list.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that, but I had something else to say, but I was reading more of this too, Chair. That, Councillor Rick just brought up, trade show, sounds really like it's
Commercial venture.
very commercially. I think we need to change that before we send that out.
Yeah, I think if you call it a services showcase or a open house, it sounds better than a trade show. Cause I had just that. I had, you got it on yours. I don't know if I called it a Town of Digby Services Open House, I believe it was. Which does sound better than calling it a trade show, because then people are gonna be trying to get in on it. If it's a services open house, then it gives the public and everyone an idea of what you're doing. And the date's to be announced, but if I can read Mike's writing, it looks like April 24th, 5 to 8, 23rd? There, okay. So, and we do have a timeline set up to keep things rolling. So, that's what we'll do.
Sorry, what was that?
April 23rd, 5 to 8 p.m.
So where you're spending money,
Uh-huh.
I guess we should probably send this to council.
Yeah, the budget is $1,225.
Is that included in the one we already talked about, or is this in addition?
That's,
Your $265?
no, that's in there.
It's all together.
That's already,
It's already in there. Well, you're probably gonna do it every other year. Anyway.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be an annual thing for
No.
sure, right? So.
And there's some talk of grant money possibly as well.
some talk of what was that?
No, that's for.
No, for us. Okay, not for that.
So I guess, I mean, the last time we had it, I'll bug Matthew a bit, it really depends on how you can present as well, like if there's like some preliminary things ready for the budget, capital budget at least, or something that you can present to them. The idea is to have you present first like you did last time, you showed the big pie, and if you can get some.
Yeah, I did a questionnaire last time, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
quiz.
But a lot of people aren't aware of our costs anyway, so I mean, even if it's a projection, which would be good to have as a presentation. And then after that, it's mostly sort of a meet and greet type thing when it comes to like the coalition, if they come, what they're doing, senior safety, how they work, and for public works, it's not just paving the street, there's actually infrastructure under the road, so when they see a sign that says 4 million, it's actually more than just paving, right, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether you could put presentations in with that type of environment. Last time we did it, there were more static displays with
Right.
people explaining
Yeah.
what was going on and
Yeah.
words, and I don't know whether I could do sort of a budget.
But you could do like how much percentage wise roughly we spend in policing.
Yeah, I mean, we could have
Yeah.
charts up, we
Right.
could say, and this has changed over time, or did you know, that sort of,
Yes.
all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And even have some of it scrolling on a screen.
It'd be a good introduction to, these are the services that we have in our town, and this is the cost of them. That's what I mean. RCMP, senior safety, et cetera. So it would be a good introduction to start to say, well, this is why, and this is how much, and that's right. Then after that, okay, go talk to those people and tell them what they actually do.
Mr. Chair, with the Housing Coalition, if they join, can they do things like looking for donations and that kind of stuff as well, or is this
Just do their whole pitch. Yeah, great.
The 300,000.
I suspect that a lot of the organizations there would be looking for volunteers and assistance in one way or another anyway. And the more public we can bring into it, the better. And that's why with the advertising and the posters, and hopefully, I'm not sure exactly what it was, the text program that was talked about for being able to get this out to the public. So hopefully that could help bring in some extra public, some extra people to the event.
So at our executive meeting, you had talked about a program for people to register. And the thought was to start a program that he'll probably explain to us in English that we can understand it. But the thing is, this is a nice trial for our communication for the whole town. So it's a system that we're gonna try to do with registering people for this one, right?
So I looked at it. So the problem is, it's just for me, trying to find something that's Canadian is important to me. That service that I looked at, I got signed up for the free trial. And what I'm basically looking for is, you're familiar with Jotform?
Vaguely.
Okay, so basically it allows you to design a survey, an input form of any kind, signing up to give someone your information, whether you have an email list or text messaging or anything like that. I did sign up for it, and it's Canadian, and that's about the only thing it has going for it. It's ridiculously difficult to try and navigate. I don't know if you looked at it or not, Leslie?
No.
No? It is horrible. Jotform is American, but it is vastly superior and very easy to navigate. You can make a form in about 3 seconds and send it out to however many people you want to use it for. But there's a cost to doing that. But that is one of the steps in the communication sort of we have to look at, because we need a way of gathering information. We need that first step to say, here is a service, and we would like to know if you would like it. So give us the details, right? So whether that's, would you come to a trade show? Would you like to be at the trade show? Would you like to, do whatever? Those are all those tools. So I think we have to start seriously looking at spending some kind of money on some service to begin that process, because as we get further and further down the line and we want to do a community bulletin board monitor somewhere in town, then you're going to need some kind of a mechanism to say to people, would you like to receive text messages? Would you like to receive email? Would you like to receive a phone call? Would you, whatever that is, in order to get that information so that we can add them to that service. In the same way, if you had that bulletin board to say to the Housing Coalition, Nancy, would you like to advertise that you have a pizza party coming up on Saturday? It's not, right? It's a no-brainer, but you've got to be able to get the information in so that staff will not have to start designing graphics and making sure the text is right. And they're going to do all that work. They're going to go to wherever we tell them to go to and fill in the blanks. And Leslie or whoever's going to get it just gets a form that's already done and just says, okay, information slot A goes in hole B, that's part of it. But that's sort of the first step that we have to figure out what we're going to do and how much we're going to spend and if we're going to do it.
How's the initial contact made with the people you're trying to get the message to?
So you've got to use what social media that you have available now, any email addresses that you have available now, word of mouth. That's how you sort of get the ball rolling. Right.
From your existing database.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a good way to start it. I mean, it's too bad that we're starting at the trade show, but if you had this coming after the trade show, it would have been a wonderful booth to have at the trade show to say, sign up for this service, right? But we're kind of trying to get there quicker. Yeah.
Would it be, it's for all the public, not just for our use and
everybody,
other people's use?
Yeah.
So you could possibly, if you got it up and running on a trial basis, you could actually explain it to people during the show.
But I thought you wanted to use it.
Well, you want it for this, yes. But if you've used it for this,
yeah,
and you're looking for more participation.
Oh, yeah.
You could actually explain it at the showcase.
Yeah.
You could explain it there and say, hey, you didn't get the message?
Yeah.
Here's how you get the message.
Yeah. We used it for the provincials in 2018-19. For all the swim teams in Nova Scotia to register and send us their list of swimmers, and it worked wonderfully. We had all their, because you can imagine all the swimmers and they're underage, you need their contact details, and if something happens, an emergency contact, so we had all that information, just came to one source in one email, and it was in an Excel sheet, and we printed it and we were done. It was fantastic. That's cool. Yeah. And the options and the abilities for that depend on the level of the package that you
Okay.
purchase and how many you can do. It goes, from so many to unlimited to, like anything else, it's a paid for use service, so. But Jot Form, I found that the 3 or 4 that I'm familiar with is by far the superior.
So basically, we would be only dealing with the population of Digby, maybe a little spillover.
Mhm.
So you wouldn't be dealing with the same kind of scale as the province of Nova Scotia and swim teams.
No.
So that might keep your costs down a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can go so far as, you're someone who's moved away, but you'd still like to get our newsletter. Put yourself on the mailing list, so every time there's a newsletter, the newsletter goes out to the email list for newsletter.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the world gets our newsletter.
I see. Very good, sounds good.
Yeah. Everyone?
Do we need a motion to take this to council?
You for money, and I'll come back with cost.
Okay.
Sure.
I'll move that we, yep, I'll move to take that to council.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, if I can interject just for a second. I'm wondering if we should go back to the TRIP. I know that the grant coordinator is already working on it, but where there is the potential that it's going to have an additional cost beyond what the grant will cover, should we take that to council for discussion so that if there is a cost, the grant coordinator will be able to act and go through even though there could be a cost with it? So have that discussion now instead of having it as a reactionary thing down the road.
That's a good point. Instead of having the grant coordinator halted in his tracks. Yeah, if you'd like to entertain that motion?
It'd be an operating cost, part of the operating budget. Pre-approved.
Okay. So we should pre-approve it or it already is?
Pre-approve the council. Yeah.
It needs to be.
Yeah, okay. The operating budget's probably not gonna be passed until June, so you need, if you wanna get going soon.
Okay. Then I'll make the motion that we take that to council for discussion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor of that?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Okay. Strategic priorities.
All right, so this comes from our planning session we had on December 7th. And I've highlighted a few things and taken it to the executive committee so we can move forward on some of the #1 priorities for this summer. Leslie, Tom, and I went through our sheets of paper, and we prioritized it, we sent it out. So these are the things that I'm suggesting we take to council to start the ball rolling, so to speak. So Warwick Street sidewalk, so that would be from Warwick up to Mount, because right now when the students come across to West Street there's no sidewalk going up. So the plan was to do that one first. Then we talked about going up St. Mary's and then across in the front of Home Hardware. So we'll do this one first this summer so that the kids will have a sidewalk to go next school year.
Excuse me, Mike, do you mean the West Street sidewalk from
Yeah.
Warwick to Mount?
Yeah.
Okay,
Going on West Street, yeah.
okay.
Second one is the Walk This Town. I believe that's in the active transportation.
That would come under active transportation.
Right. So can you just explain what that was? I think you brought that up.
Yeah, I did, and the concept was that we start a series of walks in different communities around the area. And Digby might be able to kick it off with a Walk This Town. And it's just an invitation to people to come to walk your town. 3 different routes, easy, moderate, and aerobic, let's call it. And it would need volunteers or organization through DARC, someone like that, to have stations to get tagged as you go the different routes. And then it could be sponsored, which I don't know if it's allowable or not, if it could be sponsored by local businesses through gift certificates. You could get tickets as you go around and put your name in for each station. And draws would bring people back to the town through gift certificates. So I suggest something like that gift certificate would be 50% off a meal at the Wheelhouse. So those people, when they come for the walk, if they win that certificate, they'll come back again to spend money at the Wheelhouse and perhaps somewhere else in town. Then if Digby can do it, then maybe it'll take off. It could be done in Bear River, Weymouth, Freeport, Sandy Cove, anywhere that wants to pull off a walk this town.
So I was talking to Data on Friday, and they're looking at doing something similar to this, so they could do
Digby area tourism?
sponsorships and stuff, yeah.
Oh, that would be good.
I just wanted to clarify what it was, so.
Yeah.
So I'll pass it.
So that's basically it. It's a very low cost thing, because what we would be putting out would just be information. And once people are here, we would have to establish the routes, close off the routes perhaps, and somebody would provide some water. Somebody would hopefully volunteer to do the stations.
Okay.
And each village or town would be responsible for their own volunteers.
Okay. The other one was the diversion of the trail, so when you walk down Victoria Street, the idea is to get them to turn and do the trail and come into town instead of going down around Brackett.
That's right.
So that was signage, I believe, that we want to get for that.
I believe it would take some signage.
Yeah.
And the idea is, like, say if somebody's walking from the Pines and coming in town, instead of walking along the edge of the racket there, that's kind of tricky. There could just be signs on the corner saying, hey, there's a walking trail just 500 feet up the road, and a little bit of signage there with maybe 1 or 2 signs on the trail itself on each end, and may have to trim some bushes back to make it a little more inviting, especially for people that aren't used to walking trails.
Perfect. Under traffic control, we suggested that we have a crosswalk coming across from the marina, so the marina to the sidewalk. And the curling club crosswalk needs to be redone as well. Under beautification, start working on the facade program. As well, get a letter off to our streetscape person who designed our streetscape to come in and do a presentation to council, because it is 5-6 years old, so we need an update on that project and get some input from us on what we see changed on it. And then once we do that, we can move on to the to getting the downtown business people involved in those 2 programs. But I think we need to get together with the guy first and develop the facade program before we bring the business people in. I know when we talked, Tom Leslie and I, to do the east side of Water Street first is a possibility. So whether that starts this fall or next spring, we got to get moving on getting that off the shelf to work it. The other thought was the lighthouse kiosks. So we use the lighthouse for when the BIC councilors come in the summertime, and they instead of walking up and down the street, they'll use the kiosk. So it was recommended that a new stairway has to be done there because it's pretty unsafe now. People won't go in it, but at the same point, it needs to be a small ramp so that they can use that. And the last thing, almost the last thing, is to get staff to write a letter to the Premier so that we can meet with the Premier on taking care of the Marshall Yard, take ownership of the Marshall Yard. We are going to Halifax in the spring, so it might be a good idea if we do that before we go to Ottawa, or with the NSF inventory, we can drop in and see the Premier on the way up and see how we can get that back, take it over. And that's it that I had for that.
Paving for second list.
Yes, paving was on that as well for the 25-26. Yeah, so paving second half was on that as well.
And just a section from Church Street to Mount.
Yeah.
Because I think there's only one building lot left there. It's pretty much all built.
Yeah, so I encourage you to take a look at the list we did from that session. I like to put these ones forward for council, but if you see some other stuff that we can work on for this year, then we need to get that in, right? Because staff is gonna have to, especially Ed, for building stuff and putting the cement in his plan and everything for that, so. And for the capital budget, we need these projects put in, so. Question, yeah?
Just for clarification, then, yeah, and Director of Public Works and I are gonna sit down tomorrow and start drafting some rough, ideas. Just want to clarify the sidewalks.
Yes.
So, St. Mary Street from Victoria to West, I've got that. The next line, I think you said it's West Street?
Yeah,
Going from
in here
Warwick
it says, Warwick Street to Mount Street.
So that's west.
But it's
That
on
would-
west.
That would be on West Street.
West.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what about going south? That won't connect to the St. Mary's Street one because there's a gap in there. Was that the intention to connect them, or?
Yeah, so what would happen is we do from Mount Street down West Street to Victoria this year, right? And there's already a sidewalk going West Street up to St. Mary's.
Not,
Right.
you see, it only goes a halfway or what is
Yeah,
it?
where Old Tybee was, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
next year we would do that,
Oh, okay.
right? And then
Yep.
the following year, we
Yep.
try to connect that whole
Just-
block around.
Yeah, just wanted to know if you wanted that all
Yeah,
in the
I mean,
one
if we-
year.
If we could do that,
Yeah.
that would be great,
Okay.
right? To do that West Street would be good. Yeah, good point, I didn't,
Then it's all continuous.
then it's all continuous, yeah. So, I would make a motion to take this to council for, I guess, budget.
Seconded?
I'll second that.
Seconded. All those in favor of that motion? Aye. Aye, very much. Motion is carried. That brings us to our conclusion